All right, so welcome to our February roundtable. Today's focus is renewals, and this topic was chosen by all of you on the last call. So we're really excited to chat about membership renewals. All right. For those of you who are new to the community, just a quick reminder. So Membership Masterminds is a free online community for association folks that are looking to really just connect with one another. It's on LinkedIn. We see that we get a lot more engagement in these roundtables, but if you ever have questions or things that you want to talk about with your peers in between these roundtables, or if there's anything that might have been outstanding from the roundtable, remember that you can always use the LinkedIn channel. To post any questions, thoughts, all of that. We are up to nearly 740 total members, which is amazing. So if you have any friends that want to join as well, feel free to spread the word. This is really just the community is as big as you'll make it, and it's as beneficial as you'll make it. So spread the word if you wish. Um, Per usual, we have a couple of starting discussion questions in case people didn't come with any to the table. That's totally fine. I'm going to post these in the chat and stop sharing my screen so that we have some type of guide if need be. But again, the whole purpose of these roundtables is to give everybody here an opportunity to talk about some of the hot topics that are on their mind. So before we dive into some of these pre-drafted questions, I'm curious to know who has some questions about membership renewals, who has some problems or some ideas that they've been implementing that have worked really well. Who wants to kick it off?
Hey, Brittany, before we do that, and please think about that for a second, raise your hand if you'd like to do that. I have to tell you guys something. I'm late, and there's a reason why I'm late, and I want to tell you about that right now. By the way, if we haven't met, I'm Dave Will, co-founder and CEO of PropFuel. Brittany and Megan Scanlon and Robson and we all work together. Um, so I do this podcast for Entrepreneurs Organization. I just interviewed this guy. He was absolutely amazing. If you're, and I've got nothing to gain by sharing this with you. I'm telling you this because I was just blown away by this guy. His name's Matthew Pollard, and he's like this brilliant speaker on introverts and applying introversion to telling stories and selling and networking and so on. But this guy, if any of you are looking for speakers, or you think you have somebody, for an event, or you think your events person is looking for a speaker, just send me an email. I want to introduce you to Matthew Pollard. It was awesome. And if you just want to listen to the podcast, I can send you the podcast as well. All right, I got that off my plate. And Brittany, what kind of membership mastermind would it be if I didn't bring a dad joke with me to kick it off?
I know. I was thinking
Did,
of Googling it,
did I
but I was
miss it? Did
banking
you
on
do
you.
one?
No, I
Well,
couldn't do that without you here.
Brittany, I don't know if your home has a house number on it, but if it doesn't, you should really address that.
I should.
You should. Okay, thank you. Megan Scanlon, thank you for laughing. It's fine.
We
All
got
right,
some laughs
guys.
out there.
With that, I personally, I love this topic. I'm sorry for coming in like a bull in a china shop. I'm just super excited from that podcast. And my favorite topic in this industry, and especially in the world of engagement and membership, is renewals and especially like winning back lapsed members. I really, really, in a nerdy way, enjoy this topic. So I'm really looking forward to hearing you and your challenges and your solutions. So with that, I haven't seen any hands go up of problems you're trying to address as it's related to. Oh, thank you,
Oh,
Rick. Rick, why don't you kick us off? What you got? You muted, Rick.
Rick, you're muted.
Sorry. At the beginning of the year, our national association changed how they bill for memberships. So traditionally, if you had joined in, say, June, you would renew the following June and every June thereafter, as long as you were a member. So last year, they decided to bring everybody up to a calendar year. So if your membership ended, say in September, they gave you a grace period, 3 months. You got 3 months of free membership, and then you would renew in January. The problem is, I think most people didn't either understand it or they just assumed they were on their regular renewal cycle. So what happened on January 1st, we lost 50% of our members in our chapter, and we lost several hundred internationally. So that created a real problem for us. So now we're scrambling to get people back. I've got my board making phone calls. We're sending emails. We're doing everything we can. The International Association even realized the challenge and said, okay, if you renew by February 28th, they'll give you 15% off your membership. That's still enough of an inducement. So from a perspective of revenue, our chapter of IABC, which is International Association of Business Communicators, is doing very well financially. We do a lot of programs, so we have a nice revenue stream, but it's not coming from membership dues. And now with only half the members, it's creating kind of a challenge for us. So I'm really looking for ideas on how to get some of those people back.
So Rick, are these people who renewed last June, thought they were good for a year and now surprised they're only good for 6 months?
What they did is I guess they kind of prorated it for them. So people who were up, I guess, for renewal last June would have only paid through the end of the year. And then they would have been starting over in January 1. So for example, my dues expired in November. I was just granted like a month till January 1, and then my dues renewed. But even then, I just assumed that it was going to roll over, and it didn't. So, December 30th, I got an email saying, your dues are going to expire tomorrow. So I was like, oh, I better renew. Not everybody responded. I think especially if your company is paying for your dues, you may just assume that the company is going to pick it up on its regular renewal cycle. It may even be a challenge for people who thought, that the companies, if they're submitting an invoice for renewals, and the company may say, hey, we just renewed you in June. Why are you renewing now again in January? So that may be another problem.
I came from an organization that made that switch, but let's make it worse. They switched multiple times.
Oof.
They went from calendar to anniversary to calendar. They kept going back and forth, and having everybody renew January 1st, getting people to sign up in the middle of the year was tortuous.
Yeah.
And so we switched to, rolling, and everybody seemed happy. My current organization's rolling.
Yeah.
But the bean counters, the association management people like once a year because it's easier for them. It's just bad. That's just my humble opinion. I think you've got a lot of people who are just confused, especially if they're used to paying every. Of course, it's assuming they even think they pay every February. I don't think I know when any of my dues renew. I think it's just confusion.
Especially if you're in several associations, or let's say the website says it's $350 for the year. Okay, but what if you join in June? So it doesn't address that on the website. It will only address it when you contact them. So I don't know how it's going to work.
Rick, it's always challenging with renewals, no matter when it is, right? One of the things, just a quick question and maybe a thought. So, people didn't have a problem renewing their annual membership. It was when the prorated portion came up and it was time to renew January 1st again. Is that correct?
We had maintained a steady flow. Our membership varied maybe within a 5-person range throughout the entire year of 2024. And as soon as January hit, 50% of the people were gone.
I mean, the only thing, and I like the idea of offering a discount if they join by a certain date. I don't know, maybe you said you put on great events, maybe free attendance at an event if you, or a couple free attendance if you renew your membership, maybe using data to see what they were engaged in the past and use that as the carrot to get them back. Just again, just a thought. I'm sure you've already probably thought of it.
And we even thought of maybe perhaps saying if you renew during a certain period, we will give you your chapter dues completely free. So they'll save about $80. A program would only save them maybe $20. So I don't know if that's enough.
Rick. Hi, Rick. My name is Deborah, and I'm with the San Mateo County Bar Association. We did that, and we did it successfully, but you have to start up front. There was a lot of communication with our members. We ended on a fiscal year end of June 30th. And what we did is we gave our members the option of paying for 18 months and 6 months.
Right.
And that way they all knew where they stood at the beginning because I could see that train coming.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think the communication ahead of time is huge. Crystal, I think you had your hand raised for a little bit too.
Yeah, sorry, I was just kind of gonna reiterate it on the communication because we actually had acquired another association and they had a specific time where they had actually complimentary membership, but then they had to join by a certain date to get on our cycle, which is like a set cycle. And it was just a ton of communication and in on all channels to get that. And then we found it just takes time for them to um, I guess kind of for the word to spread and for them, oh, okay, now I have to do this. But yeah, I think that communication factor is key, is just really getting a campaign going and following up.
Yeah, I mean, the International Association did send some communications out there, but now we're in the situation where we're in reactive mode. We've got to figure out how to solve this problem. Again, it's not a revenue problem, it's a membership problem. So, if we don't have people coming to programs, from our membership, right now we probably draw about 90% of our virtual programs are from folks outside of our market, which is great. We actually had somebody on the webcast I did last week call in from the Philippines. So, we're getting people from Canada, Australia, the US on our virtual program. So that's not a problem. It's just there's no members, coming on back, and people are just saying, well, I lost my job, or I wasn't aware that my dues, and then I've got to talk to my accounting team. It's just a lot of things going on.
Can you make your membership like Netflix at the moment?
How so?
Monthly.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be one way to fix it.
Are you hearing is any of this dialogue helping you figure out what the next steps could be, Rick?
I'm just still not sure where to go. I mean, we're trying a full court press with every board member reaching out to people they know personally, and then we're making phone calls, and we're gonna once I have the blessing from our international association to go ahead and offer the free membership, because people will enroll or renew through the international website. We have to have like a, what do you call it, a tag or something, discount code so they can do it. So once we get that blessing, which I think we're going to get, then we can start promoting the free membership, chapter membership, and see if that has, maybe an impact.
Rick, is there anyone in the industry that you'd like to consult with? And I'm thinking of Amanda Kaiser, and she just to me seems like a pro when it comes to this kind of stuff. If that would be helpful, I'll bet Amanda. I mean, she's very, very strapped for time, and she's not cheap, but I suspect she would carve out a little bit of time to connect with you on this. I'm not volunteering her. I don't know, but I'm happy to make the introduction if that would help.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, you have my mailing address. That'd be perfect.
Yeah. All right.
I think
Rick,
the
did you
biggest
ever think
holdup,
about-
Rick, I think the biggest holdup, Rick, is that you have plans, but you have to get the blessing from the big organization, right?
Yes.
So that is the biggest holdup, is that, and obviously, I'm assuming because we don't have chapters, and it's been a while since I've had to deal with chapters. What are other chapters in similar situations? Do you guys meet with the national organization? I would think that collectively the other chapter leaders would have other suggestions and, kind of share the same type of messaging.
Yeah, I talk to other chapter leaders on a regular basis, so they've expressed the same problems, the same loss of membership. Only a handful of chapters actually had a positive, response in the sense that they increased or maintained the line on membership without losing anything. So, we could reach out to some of those chapters and see what they, are doing. But I think they've already done it already. For us, it's a situation where how do we fix it now?
So I'll say all your memberships funnel through, like all the payments funnel through the national organization.
Yes.
Okay. You're between a rock and a hard place right now at the moment until you get that blessing.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Rick, have you thought about, this is kind of old school, actually calling half a dozen people who've been members for 5 to 10 years and just ask them?
Yeah, that's what we're
I did,
doing.
okay, because I did that at a fundraising gig once, and it's amazing. You ask people something, you get wisdom, and I completely fixed the problem. Once I asked them what the problem was, they may say the discount's not an issue, it's an accounting period, it's this, it's that, and then you can discount till the cows come home and you won't get any response.
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Yeah, we have really just been kind of talking more about how do we get you back into the fold as opposed to asking them really why they dropped.
I think part of the problem is that you're unfortunately part of the downstream, that their anger is probably at the national organization for making these crazy changes.
Yeah,
And as a chapter, you're just feeling the brunt of it.
exactly. I think that's exactly
And
it.
so really you have to put the pressure on the national organization to make things right and allow you to offer free membership or do whatever they have to do at a much more rapid speed than you just holding and waiting.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks.
All right, Rick, this isn't done. I'm going to connect you with somebody. And if anybody else in here has some ideas for Rick, what's the best way to contact you? What's your email?
WT soccer coach at me.com. That's WT like whiskey tango soccer coach at me.com. I also put my LinkedIn information in the chat. I'll put the email in there as well.
Perfect.
Thank you. All right. Any other, Brittany, I didn't mean to step on your toes.
You're fine.
You were doing just fine.
Take the reins. You've got the dad jokes, so.
Yeah, I always wonder how those play over. Do we like the dad jokes or are they really kind of annoying? Pamela says yes. Oh, Caprice, thank you. All right.
Kevin's a
So
maybe.
I think there's a lot of people out there like no, but they're not going to be a party pooper either. So you're stuck with them if that's you. All right. Who else has a renewal or win back issue they would love guidance on? And if not, we can go right into some of the questions that Brittany and team have constructed.
Hi. I wanted to get some input from others on the idea of automatic recurring membership dues payment structures.
Yeah.
So at the American Nurses Association, we have had automatic monthly payment as an option for many, many years, at least a couple decades. And we now have 70% of our members on that, which is great because they have a higher retention rate. But, we're always, talking about and looking for other ways to really take out the friction of retention, and that the requirement of, making an annual payment is a point of friction, right? Because with the automatic monthly payment, the membership just keeps going on until either the credit card fails or someone intentionally cancels, which they don't do very often. One thing I've thought of is something we did with our e-membership category, which is a lower price digital membership that really is a fairly low quantity. And we made annual recurring payment the only option for e-membership. And our retention rate, for that category climbed from like 35% to over 70. So I was toying with the idea of, maybe taking that same strategy with other membership categories. But anyway, I'm just interested in anyone's experiences with either annual recurring payments, monthly recurring payments, or similar strategies.
At my previous association, Carol, I was a big proponent of the automatic renewals. I thought it was amazing. It kind of just, it was low hanging fruit,
Yeah,
especially for those that they're long-term members.
right.
Um,
And these days, it's so much more accepted with, like, someone mentioned Netflix earlier, I mean, we're all kind of used to this model, I think.
so how much, I mean, the only thing I think of is if you offered a bit of a discount to offset the cost of credit card fees. Like there's a credit card fee associated every single time you charge, and it's on a monthly basis.
True.
Could you offer a small discount to offset that to get the entire year? Because that would actually help you really kind of see what your full retention is versus kind of figuring out month to month, right? Um, it would be a lot easier to kind of, you would also get that whole buy-in for the entire year.
Are you saying to give a discount for like recurring payment?
For an annual
the-
recurring payment, like an automatic, like 5%.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And you would get them on board for an entire year. And you would more than offset what you would pay on a monthly basis for a credit card fee for charging a membership every single month.
Mm-hmm. We essentially do that in that our annual recurring payment, it's the same total cost as one-time annual payment, whereas the monthly payment has the monthly credit card processing fee built in. It's not much. It's 25 cents a month. But yeah, we could even do perhaps a steeper discount to incentivize annual recurring.
Elizabeth, it looks like you have your hand raised.
Hey, Carol, this is Liz. I work at the American Association of Nurse Practitioners. So
Hi.
we do an annual recurring payment. And I have been at a previous association that did monthly. I really don't want someone making a renewal decision 12 times a year. I really just want it one time. And it simplifies the operation. We've got about 60% of our eligible members on that as well. And following credit card failure rates is really tough month to month because
That is
depending on your systems, tokens expire, and it's so much easier to track credit card failure rates by year. When I first got here, our credit card failure rate was like 30%. It was horrifying. When more like 12% to 15% is where we want to be. So I find it simpler to track, and our members seem to like it better. Some employers do pay dues, and those that are expensing it really don't want to do it monthly. And it's kind of set it and forget it is the model. So we're happy with, much happier with the annual than monthly.
Do you also offer monthly or not at all?
We do not offer monthly, thank goodness. We never have because we don't, reeling something back in after decades is daunting. I feel you on that. But if you did offer and take away the monthly incentive and offer a slight incentive to annual, even if it's 3%, my experience with nurses and nurse practitioners is they love a discount. They love a deal. So that might help you.
Yeah, I like that idea, particularly because the other thing we found with the monthly payment is they don't necessarily make a renewal decision each month because it's just an automatic recurring payment. You don't
They
really,
could cancel.
but they can cancel. Yes. And we are starting to see that where they perhaps take a big discount on a product and then cancel the next month, which really stinks. And
Oh, we call
but
them on that. We tell them their dues are non-refundable. And if they have used a significant discount, like some of it is significant, we push back.
Carol and Liz, are in your fields, is it mostly out of pocket? In other words, there's no organizations paying for these individuals. Because I think that's one of the problems I've seen with a lot of associations, not to take the attention away from you, Carol, in this topic, but I think a lot of associations struggle with recurring automatic payments because it's a company paying for it, not an individual.
Yeah, for us, and I imagine it's similar because we're both talking about nurses.
Yeah.
The strong majority is the members paying their own dues, but it's not
Yeah.
100%. And so you make a very good point that you know, if we don't have an option for that monthly payment won't be good for some people for whom their employers are paying.
Yeah, but probably not so much in your field. I mean, trade associations, their auto payments probably aren't going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And professional associations like teachers or nurses. I mean, if teachers have to buy their own pencils for a classroom, chances are they're going to have to pay for their own membership to their teacher association.
Mm-hmm.
Marquita, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. My former association was a professional association, a bar association, and I would say that the month to month was something that the younger generation really needed, including law students and those first entry, especially if they were with smaller law firms that weren't picking up the bill. And so I would agree with Liz that it is an additional administrative challenge month to month, especially when they're expiring. But we would have captured the number of younger people coming through law school. And, that target audience was only attorneys and judges. So it was really important that we did have that offering.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, from a new member acquisition point, it's a lot easier to say, $15 a month or something like that than the grand total.
Jennifer.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Lasias, and I work for a trade association. We are, I've been here about 5 years, and we have never raised membership dues. We are about to raise the dues, which are tiered, 15% across the board. And some of our board members also want for there to be an option to pay monthly. And I just can see this becoming a disaster from a mile away, both administratively with our challenged AMS system and just with the bounce backs from the cards, having, to remind them 12 times a year, as Liz was saying, why we deserve their their money. And I'm really struggling with trying to get this across to our board of directors who provide a service that is paid monthly by their customers. They think it's a great way to go. So I'm not sure if they're wanting to offer the monthly subscription service because of the pretty steep increase in dues, but I could use some help.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Hi, Jennifer. I'm with NJBIA and we're a trade association as well. Yeah, that's a tough one. I think someone said it earlier, trying to track somebody down for a monthly payment seems like a nightmare. That maybe push back and say, how about quarterly? You're kind of meeting in the middle. It's still a pain in the neck, but not as big as a pain in the neck. Just to suggest that maybe help come and maybe they'll agree to that. I mean, ideally, like you said, it'd be great to just do it once a year, but if they're insistent on it, maybe, the behind the scenes, just emphasize, the work required and, all that. Just a suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Dion? Is it Dion? Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay.
You did. Jennifer, I'm with the trade association as well, with the New Mexico Restaurant Association, and we just raised our dues for the first time in 15 years. And we anticipated all sorts of blowback, and so we tried to be very proactive about it. I have not received one negative call.
Okay.
We went up 15%. I think my industry in particular is just used to the cost of things increasing. But we did try to encourage them, if they felt the increase was too much, to go to monthly instead. And we also only offered ACH unless they requested credit cards verbally. Then we kind of go behind the scenes and do a credit card, because we found that with with the ACH pulling from the checking account, we didn't have as many chase downs of expired cards or things being declined.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took me years to try to convince our CEO that we had to make an increase.
Right.
And we even the year before we did a audit of what we thought people's tiers should be and asked them to go up a tier in lieu of increasing the dues. And that didn't work. So
Yeah.
I think they also weren't as surprised because they had been warned that we were going to have to increase it if we didn't get everybody on the correct tier. But
That's helpful to know, because that's a challenge with ours as well, is getting them to move up.
Right. And I was just so completely surprised that the other thing we tried to do was explain, when Wayne was talking about explaining the value, I also equated it to something that's industry specific for them. So the monthly fee tended to be about a 4-top table. So
Oh,
I'm like, if you guys can get a 4-top a month or sell a beverage a day, that pays for your membership. And then they could kind of wrap around that it's not this one big bill each year. If I broke it down to them, even if they were paying annually, I broke it down to a value that they could understand.
okay.
Hey, Jennifer, you have a whole crew here, Crystal Anstey, you got Carol Cohen, you got Natalia Reed and Liz Messner. And I'm going to add to that myself, that have this small annual increase every year. And you can read their comments. But I'll say I'm a member of Entrepreneurs Organization. I'm on the board of our local chapter, and we manage our dues for our chapter as a board. And we made the decision this year to increase dues. I can't remember the exact amount. I think the number's either 3% or 5% every year without discussion. The board vote then becomes if we want to change that or do more or do less or whatever. But we never hear an issue when dues go up by a small amount. I think by a big amount, now you always get pushback and it becomes a discussion and waste board's time and so on. I will also say that software companies do this all the time, and it's slightly different, but not really. I mean, the reality is we do it too, and we just implemented it a couple of years ago where we increase our license fees annually to match inflation, generally speaking. But and we almost never get pushback on it. Almost never. It's just accepted that things go up every year.
And you don't communicate that? You just
from a software perspective, it's in our contract, and from the Entrepreneurs Organization board perspective, what did we do? I think on renewal time. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm sorry, Jennifer. I don't know. I could make something up and I could tell you what I think we should do. I don't know what we actually did as a board, to be honest.
Because I've heard both, like just do your increase and don't say anything, and then but I think that something should be communicated or alerted.
Well,
but
let's get somebody who knows. Tadu,
I can comment, Dave.
Yeah, please.
Randy Christofferson, small association, 500 members, but part of a big national association, Institute for Supply Management. And the national organization bumps theirs a huge amount every few years. And it always causes some chaos. We have gotten in the habit for many, many years now of just nudging it up a little bit every year. And honestly, I've been in this role 6 or 7 years, and I don't think I've ever been questioned. You take it up 2-3%. People, even if I'd say 90% don't notice, and if they do, they say, "Wow, that's a really good deal." With inflation running 4 or 5%, it's only going up 2 or 3. So I mean, it's worked for us.
Okay. And do you tell them, or do you have a member terms and conditions upon?
We do not have a formal agreement. The billing is done by National. I let National know on an annual basis.
What you want.
Yeah, hey, we're gonna go from 350 to 360. They change it in the system, and then those people that have already received notice obviously they pay the old rate, but then anybody that comes up due within the next 60 days and anybody that joins new, they just see that new rate. And like I said, people are busy, and I've been surprised because we had a little discussion when we first said, and then once we started doing it, we said, wow, as long as you keep it small and reasonable, and as Dave said, at or under inflation, honestly, nobody ever notices or asks.
Okay.
Teddy, can I pick on you to, you put something in the chat that I think is really valuable. Can you talk to that for a minute? And then Jonathan, wait 1 second, Teddy. Jonathan, is your topic a different topic or is it related to this one?
It's related to this one.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, you're up next.
Okay, so I'm at NACUBO. We are a national organization. We have 4 regional associations as well. We are institutionally based. We hadn't changed our due structure, the foundational structure, in 20 years. I posted a link to give you a sense of how that works, the matrix. We do have annual dues that go up that are voted by the members and our board, usually 2.5% to 3.5%. But when we updated the due structure, we decided to give them 2 years we needed to test the structure in the MELT models. So we decided to keep it flat for 2 years. So there's some information there, but I highly recommend getting a third party to put yourself in a defensible position with your board, with your members. Numbers don't lie. Everything, prices go up across the board. You should make it very clear that what you're trying to do is create longevity for your organization and really create equitable practices for all your members so that someone isn't paying a higher rate when they should be in a different tier or category, no matter what. So we spent about 2 years on this. It was not a quick fix. So it does take time and some resources, but that's happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Jonathan, so I'm sorry for ignoring you earlier. You're up, Jonathan.
No problem.
Yeah, for those of us, I'm an executive director. My name is Jonathan Payne. I'm an executive director for over 20 years. And one of the toughest discussions you always have with your boards every year is around dues, right? Do we increase dues? Do we not increase dues? Well, when the decision is not to increase dues, you have an organization sometimes that I've experienced that they get so far behind as it relates to inflation, and then all of a sudden they're forced to make that realization that we should have been increasing dues all along, at least something. Now we're so far behind in comparison to other like-minded associations or competing associations. So then you have to have a 10 or 15 or a fairly large shot to the arm, if you will, dues increase. So that has happened. I've experienced that. So my recommendation, I think Dave said it too, is have a policy, annual policy, and others have said, and I've been to increase your dues by minimum 3% every year. So it's a policy. You don't have to have the conversation. You just remind them it's happening. It's set in stone. You're increasing and you keep up with inflation. That way, years down the road, you're not behind the 8 ball and you're not injecting a huge dues increase that really, really impacts your renewals and your retention efforts as well. So I couldn't stress it more that from a trade association perspective, definitely you should have a policy in place if you're able to. It's hard to sell it. It took me 3 years to sell this to my board, to have an annual dues increase built in. And we also went through a whole restructuring of our structure as well. And that took quite a bit of time. It took about 6 months. And honestly, we don't get any pushback. And then there was a question about communication. Do you tell them? Do you don't tell them? Absolutely, you tell them. Transparency, transparency, transparency.
Yes.
But the worst thing you can do is say, hey, and trust me, they watch these invoices year to year. They know. Yeah, you'll get a call like, hey, this was especially when we had the big dues increase. They know. So you gotta share them, even if it's a couple sentences at the end saying, hey, we're increasing our dues by X. For questions, reach out to me as the executive director. Happy to have a further conversation. You don't have to go into depth in your renewal letter. They should be short anyway. But you should have some form of communication saying this is happening. Absolutely. Because transparency for all organizations is huge.
So would it be egregious to do the 15%, which it sounds like they've already decided to do, and then starting next year, do the at least 3%.
Well, from my perspective is that what one of my groups did, they did a 10% increase. They took a year off.
Took a year off. Okay.
And then they implemented the annual 3% increase.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wayne?
One last thought that we did, and again, it complicates matter, but we've been around for 100+ years, and we have longtime members. So we increased dues on new members, and then we slowly increased the existing members to get to the dues increase for the new member rate, if that makes sense. That's something that we did. It did complicate matters, but we did. I wish I had all your members, because whenever we say dues increase, we get a lot of pushback. So we tried to soften that for the the existing members, but new members we started at a different rate, because nobody knows what the dues rate was or what they pay. So just a thought, but again, it complicated things, but it did, I think, help getting our longtime members to where they needed to be. And since then, we're implementing smaller strategic increases, probably like every other year about is what we're looking at.
Hey, Tyler, I'm sorry, Natalia. Tyler, I think it might be valuable for you to talk through what you posted there, but Natalia, why don't you go first?
Thanks. Jennifer, I would ask, like, when was the last time you guys did a dues increase?
We have not. I've been here 5 years, and there has not been a dues increase since I've been here. We did a full rollover of, and I mean, it's been 5 or 7 years. Nobody seems to actually know.
I think, like, to John's point and others, like, full transparency is really important. It's also to talk about what you've added to the membership value over how many years, pick years, like 10 years. We've added this, or 5 years, however, to kind of justify the increase. I think it's really, like, going forward, I would certainly skip a year to let things settle from the 15% increase, and then strategically every 2 years. Our association, we actually invested in a pricing consultant to really help us understand, because when we were talking about increases, we weren't really thinking it through. We needed someone from an outside who actually did this professionally to provide us with some guidance and a roadmap. And it was a very well worth, it was costly, it wasn't cheap, but it really gave us a roadmap to really kind of see how far we can push our membership tiers before we had to add really additional benefits to really justify increases going forward. So it really helped us build a roadmap for the next 5, actually, I would say probably 5 to 7 years. So if you're interested in knowing who we use, I'm happy to send you a message or whatever. But it was a very well worth endeavor.
Thank you.
Do you want to share who you used as a pricing consultant? Would that be helpful?
The same person that you just posted, Dave.
Yeah, Michael.
Pricing for
Michael Tatanetti.
Yep.
He's I met him at a conference, Florida Society of Association Executive. Actually, funny story. I shared a T-bone steak with him. Never had one before. It's delicious. And 2 days later, he got COVID. Needless to say, I dodged the bullet, but he did a session at FSAE that year on pricing, and ever since, like, he's the only one I think of when I hear about association pricing.
Hands down, as Joy mentioned, a real partner. He really understood and got to know who our members were, that he was using the same lingo that our members used and we use. So he really adapts very easily to working with associations. It's it was like a 8-month project, but definitely well worth it.
Yeah.
Tadu used McKinley Advisors. There's another one to work with. Yeah, they're a bigger consulting research firm. Can I pick on, was it Tyler? Tyler, can I pick on you to explain your post?
Yeah, absolutely. So fellow trade association here, we've raised the dues 23% over the last 2 years. Prior to that, we raised the dues roughly 4% every year for the previous 5 years. So our dues have shot up significantly over the course of the last 8 to 10 years. The pushback has been what I would call minimal. Every year we'll have four or five at the most really raise a stink about it. But we're pretty blessed. We have a golden handcuff in our engineering support. A lot of members really rely on that. But association membership is very hard to quantify just in dollars. I know it's also the Ed Rigsby question. He consults on this as well. How do you show an exact dollar amount for membership? That's never an easy thing to get across. I think some consultants would tell you if your membership renewal rate is above 90%, your dues rates are too cheap as it is. We are currently hovering around 94%, so we're pretty pleased with how that process has gone. The fact is everyone's costs are going up. I think members have to accept that. And how you defend against that is different based on the company you're dealing with. I think as a trade association, you'll see questions that maybe a professional association might not encounter, which is part of the reason I think going to a monthly model would be a nightmare. At least for us, at least 30% of our payments come in by ACH or bank transfer. And I'd say 30% more come in by check. I cannot imagine having to chase those down as a trade association, but professional associations probably don't come up against that quite as much. It's certainly been a process every year as we update them, and we announce it once a year what the next year's dues rate will be. And at this point, I think members accept overall that the cost will go up some amount. But we make it clear these are actions decided on by the board, your peers in the industry, and we do have different talking points based on if it's a smaller company or a larger company. We have a tiered model as well, so we've got some companies that are paying $1,000, we've got some that are paying $5,000. But I think in this economic climate, people are a little more, hopefully, understanding of what's going on behind the scenes to make those decisions.
Thank you, Tyler. All right, it looks like we have time for maybe one more topic. I don't want to force it. I think this, by the way, I'm really happy that we didn't get to any of our questions. To me, that's a sign of growth and success for this community of people. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces. Really glad to see you guys back. That tells me that there's value in these monthly meetings. I would love it if you have any suggestions for us. Wayne, I see your hand. 1 second. If you have any suggestions for how we can make this better, you can send me an email directly, dave@propfuel.com, or just put it in the chat here. Topics you'd like to discuss for next time, put it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll make something up. The one I like is, why is prop fuel so awesome for you? So if you don't come up with something, that'll be the topic of the next session. No, I'm kidding. Wayne, go ahead, all yours.
To help you out, Dave, what did one flag say to the other flag? Nothing, it just waved.
Oh, it did, it waved, yeah.
I know this is a topic, and maybe it is a topic for another time, but we're a trade association. Like I said, we're looking at that 2-year renewal rate. And we're looking at strategies on how we keep that up. A lot of people say, you keep them for 3 years, you keep them for 5, then their lifetime, those types of things. We do have a little bit of a reason, I think, for the fluctuation in that we do offer a multiple employer health plan, even for a sole proprietor. So they tend to price shop. So that is one thing we've identified for a reason in this area. But my colleague is also on the call who covers retention. And that's one of the things we're looking to work on this year is how do we improve that first 2-year retention? So any suggestions we'd love to hear.
Hey, Wayne, can I just get some clarification? Then, Krista, it's all yours. When you say 2-year retention, I'm assuming you mean getting the first year members to renew for a second year. Is that correct?
Correct. And then getting them past that 2 years. Once we get them past that 2 years.
Yeah, we know that year one members are the most likely not to renew, and that's why if we can get them into year two, everything's great. Go ahead,
And then
Krista.
year three, you tend to have them for even longer. And that's what we're kind of, so any suggestions? Look, Krista, I guess, I'm sorry. You're muted.
Krista. Thank you. Hey, Krista, we can't hear you. I don't see that you're muted, but we still can't hear you. Maybe might be a mic issue. Now you're muted, now you're not, but we can't hear you. Check your mic, the caret down next to the mic. Oh, that's a bummer. I'm dying to know what you're going to say. Nothing. Can you tell you what? Why don't you log out, come right back in, so that I really want to hear what you have to say. And if not, maybe throw it in the chat. Sorry, Krista. We locked you out. Any input? Because if not, I got some input. Any input for Wayne?
I'm
Okay,
interested in
Wayne,
knowing how many people are struggling with the same thing. Just put like I in the chat. Maybe people don't have input because they're in the same boat.
So Wayne, I mentioned Amanda Kaiser. I love Amanda Kaiser. That's why I talk about her so much. I like her personally, and I think professionally, she just has a great message. And I love her book, Elevating Engagement, if you haven't read that. Kevin, 1 second. One of the things that we emphasize with people that use PropFuel at least is creating a more intentional new member onboarding program. And the whole point is to make sure that people are finding their personal value proposition for NJBIA. And did I get that right? I'm not sure if I'm reading. Okay. And in my perspective, our perspective is that it all starts with a question. What are you doing here? Why did you join? And so that's the methodology we use, is by simply asking questions that allow us to get to know people. It's like a choose your own adventure book. Having said that, quick anecdote. I've been a big fan of the Boy Scouts. It used to be Boy Scouts of America. Now it's just Scouting or Scouts of America. Last night, one of my coworkers reached out to me because he knows I've been involved and I've got 3 kids. And he said, I don't understand. Like, I just went to a meeting, first meeting ever. I have no idea what's going on. I don't understand the book. I don't understand merit badges. I don't understand ranks. And like, can you explain it to me? And all I could think of is, man, they lose so many parents because it's so complicated. If all they had, if only they had a new member onboarding program for Scouts. Kevin.
Actually, to follow your theme, it's really just a question to follow up on Wayne's question. My question would be, do you have specific strategies targeting those first year renew, second year renew? Like, do you have a program where you have a bunch of volunteers who call them up at that magic moment before the first year renewal comes along, do a debrief, see how it's going, remind them about the coming renewal, and the same for the second year? Obviously, it's going to be a different number, but is that something that you already have a strategy or a program around?
Yeah, we do have ambassadors and reach out and call on specific time frames before dues renewal to offer them, free event attendance to get them more engaged, specifically for the ones we know who only joined us because they wanted access to that healthcare. So we really try to target that group more specifically.
This might be a great topic. Thank you, Brittany. Brittany put this in the chat. It's 12:57 Eastern time right now. Wayne, this isn't a problem that's going away. Why don't we make this? I got a bunch of, 4, 5, 6. We got a bunch of thumbs up. What a great topic. New member onboarding, first year member engagement. And that gives me a chance to shut down this conversation without snubbing you, Wayne. All right. You guys, this was my favorite one. I don't know how many of these we've done, maybe 6 or 7 at this point. We've got, gosh, like 700 plus membership people participating in this now. I wish we could figure out how to make the LinkedIn community a little more active, but it's just, you know, I think it's just the nature of the way groups work in LinkedIn. This alone is worth every bit of energy we put into this. So thank you for participating. Great session today. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.